Okay, so I met my ex-husband, my boy's dad, on a dating app. So you would have thought I would have learned my lesson not to ever go on a dating app again. But I am sitting in Arizona in the last year after my breakup. I have really worked on myself, healed. So I went on this dating app and I had one date that didn't go so well. I was like, not really ready to date. And then a couple weeks later, I went out and met this guy off the dating app. Have you ever met someone and just everything clicks and hours of talking seems like seconds? And I don't know, it scares me because this guy is really amazing. So
the chat was great.
Hold up there, sister. I really need you to make this make sense. You said that you met your, baby daddy on a dating app, and supposedly you had hoped you learned your lesson never to use a dating app again, but then, obviously, you went back out there into the, dating pool, used the dating app, and now you're scared because you met a guy who is amazing? How does meeting a good guy equate to fear? If we're using normal logic, but we're not. We're using femme dating logic here. This gorilla is going to assume that the reason that you are so hesitant is because you are a single mom, and this guy, maybe I've been talked to for a while, but you're always going to have the fear that he is not going to want to purchase the package deal, Rugrat included. Sister, all I can say to you is, that is a risk you decided to take the day you decided to become a single mom. I'm not knocking you for leaving your ex-husband. Maybe there were good reasons, maybe there weren't good reasons. The point is, you put yourself in this position, and you're going to have to deal with it. Just like if the wonderful guy that you met decides to purchase a used car, paying the new car price. That'll be on him. Before we move on, I want to bring attention that 70% of my viewers are not subscribed to my channel. Come on, fam. You've seen my logo on other channels, and you're already here. Please hit that subscribe button and support the channel. It really helps out. Moving on.
So I'm single and childless. Yesterday at work, somebody was talking about dating, and I was just like, yeah, I gave up on that long time ago. And then somebody else was like, Rachel, this whole time I thought you were married with kids. She said, I don't know, you just act so grown up. And I took that as a compliment. I was like, who, me? Act grown up? But then I thought, I am 39, so I probably should. But here's the thing, I say gave up, but that's kind of not really true. For me, it's just not my main goal. It's not my priority at this point in my life. I think when we age, just our priorities shift. And I think when I realized that I don't have to have a spouse or I don't have to have kids to have a happy life, I was able to shift my perspective. And I'm like, my life's pretty good as it is. I don't want to spend X amount of days that I have left in this life worried or stressed about finding a spouse. If it happens, it happens. Great. If it doesn't, I'm still going to live a great life. Travel, spend time with my family, my friends, prioritize my health, and act like a grown-up.
Oh, behave.
All right, Queen. Allow me to point out the not so obvious here. You see, when you make a video and you post it out on the internet, put it on blast, and you say, hey, I'm happy to be alone, I'm happy, and I'm living my best life this way, the most obvious question that will come out from my male viewers is, why post a video anyway if you actually are happy? I mean, it just seems like you're trying to get reassurance from a bunch of strangers on the internet to tell you, yeah, you're happy. When a person's really happy with how their life is, they don't have to announce it to the world or anyone else because they know they're happy, regardless of how many comments you get of how grown up you act. Congratulations, you're an adult. That's a typical compliment for a grown up who's got a job. And you may be the exception to the rule, but for the most part, women don't get as much satisfaction from employment and travel and money and purchasing things as men do. Women tend to get more satisfaction out of having children and having a family. So although you might be the exception to the rule here, Colleen, you have to understand that the bulk of men are gonna think that this is just a coping mechanism. Well, I'm not saying it is, but then again, I'm not putting a video out there trying to convince others how happy this gorilla can actually get. Sure. Moving on.
Why isn't anybody talking about the single tax? It is significantly more expensive to be single, to the point that it's economically irresponsible to cook when you're single. It costs $75 to make a meal, not to mention the cost of running the dishwasher, washing up all of the pots and pans. And then what am I going to do? Eat lasagna for 6 days? When I could use Uber Eats and one of their various codes each week to get a salad for $9. Imagine paying half your rent because you share your apartment with somebody, half your electricity bills, half your cable, Hulu, Amazon, Netflix subscriptions. When you're going to the airport on a trip, you don't have to pay $70 for an Uber by yourself because you're splitting it with somebody. Forget saving money on a Costco membership. When am I ever going to use 36 apples? It's honestly the only argument I have for getting in a relationship. It is expensive to stay single. But just imagine if there were no more single people. The food and beverage industry would just collapse.
Erroneous! Erroneous! Erroneous on both counts.
Oh, Lord. The singles tax? I mean, yes, nobody likes taxes. I don't think there's one viewer that I have, male or female, who's going to say yay to taxes. But in reality, men actually find being single far less expensive than being in a relationship where they have to maintain the other half, let alone a family. And this Kaween said it costs $75 to make a single meal? Damn, girlfriend. Even Chef Ramsay can tell you that a microwavable TV dinner will only cost you about $3.99. What the hell are you making for every meal? Leg of lamb with a side of white truffles and caviar? And as you said, your justification to be in a relationship is only because of the singles tax? Listen, that's just a long way of saying you are a brokey. You just don't know how to manage your money. I mean, instead of learning how to heat up a can of beans, some mashed potatoes, and a pork chop, you gotta pay $9 for an Uber Eats frickin' salad? Sister, I highly recommend you find one of these cooking channels, subscribe, and learn how to cook on the less expensive side. Either that or start dating a guy who works at Olive Garden. Sounds like he's gonna need to bring home all the leftovers to date you. Moving on!
Quick story time before handing it over to a question that I have for the single men. So I was dating a guy that was 40. We had gone on maybe 10 dates. He is single, never been married, no kids. I am previously been married and I have a child. So we ended up ending things, and he had said he's just having a really hard time getting past the fact that I have a child with someone else. He wants to start a family with someone that has never had a family, has never been married, never had a child. And so my thought would be he needs to go younger. I had said that to him, okay, well, kind of like a reality check. If that's the case, you're likely going to have to go younger. And he's like, oh, I already tried that. Before we dated, I was dating only younger girls. He's like, I just have never had anything in common with them. We're at very different stages of our life, 40 and 20, early 20s. It's just you have a lot of growing up to do, or maybe you have experiences that you're still looking to achieve in your life before you settle down, rightfully so. But the question I have is for the single men. Is this normal that you really don't want to date someone that has either been married or has a child if you have not been married and you do not have a child? Or are majority of guys open to starting that family with someone that's already had a family? Really curious. I've never heard something of that nature before, but this is the first guy that I've dated in a long time that has either never been married nor had a child at the age of 40. So was curious, would love to hear anyone's input or perspective. Let me know.
Show of hands for everybody who knew. Bingo.
Okay, I'm going to be honest with you with your question first, and let's take your question by sections. And the first section is, do men get bothered with dating women who have kids from other marriages? Now, bothered is not so much the word as in they know that they're expected to take care of a kid from another marriage. This is why a lot of men would say, hey, I don't want to play another man's save game. A lot of men have a problem stepping in and playing the father figure. And those who do step in, they become stepdads, they talk and they tell other men the unique challenges of getting told in their face, you're not my dad, I don't have to do what you say. In other words, they inherit all the responsibility with very little to no authority. And that is something that most men just really aren't cool with. Now, to the other part that you were referring to, as to a guy in his 40s wants a woman to have a child with, obviously a woman in her 20s, but wants somebody with more life experiences so he could have better conversations. Well, this is what I'm going to say. About that, I would say that individual has basically painted himself into a little corner. You see, if you wait until your 40s to have a kid as a man, you know you're going to have to go younger. And there's a trade-off. Yes, there's a lot of youth, beauty, fertility, all the great qualities of young women have, except they may be a little bit immature, especially in today's Western world. And if you want to have a kid, you're going to have to put up with that immaturity to have a family. Unfortunately, there's no possible way to have a perfect package, especially with a woman. So if the guy she's talking about is still saying no to younger women, he might as well just give up. It's not going to happen. He's not going to find that unicorn, that woman who's 27, 28, and has got the experience of a woman in her 40s. Notice I didn't say mentality, because the mentality is the same. Equally entitled, equally childish. Moving on.
Do not be worried if you're 38 and single. Do not be worried if you're 48 and single. Do not be worried if you're 28 and single. Do not let society tell you that you are old when you are 38. I am 38. I'm single. I don't have any kids. I've never been married. I spent a lot of years going back and forth on feeling bad about that. Sometimes I wouldn't care. Sometimes I would care too much. Like, ooh, definitely just heard a car wreck. Because of that, a lot of the actions that I took weren't healthy. After a night out, I would hate going home to an empty house, so I would just go after party. If something was no longer serving me in a relationship, I'd cling to it, hang on to it longer, thinking that I can just make this work. If something would end, I would jump back on the dating apps and I'd be like, oh my God, I need to find a date. And that would make me end up feeling worse because I'm very choosy on who I spend my time with. So I'd go on lots of first dates, not like anyone, and then think that it was hopeless. I got into some pretty deep therapy from 36 to 37. I went to 2 different retreats at the Meadows. I worked with a therapist. I was with someone that went through sobriety. All the therapy really leveled me out.
First of all, I would like to congratulate this queen on actually taking therapy. Now, I know a lot of my male viewers will say that therapy really doesn't help and it's a waste of time, but I honestly believe that therapy can help out some women out there. The correct therapy, which is what I am hoping she took. Now, as to her saying about don't worry about being single in your late 30s going into your 40s, this is what I have to say. It's different for men and women. Because for as much as you ladies hate to admit it, the wall is a real thing. And it is as much biological as it is everything else. She definitely smashed through it and is really getting over the other side of that wall. And ladies, I understand that not all of you want children, but she admitted herself that she was always hurting for a relationship. And that's something that a lot of women don't actually realize. Just because you don't want to have children does not mean you don't want to have a relationship. And I've been saying on this channel for years that women end up lonely and men end up alone. There is a difference there. Flying solo is not the same for both men and women. Not just physically, which that's obvious, but emotionally. Her saying that she would get back out there on the dating apps and getting another date and then how she would feel afterwards. Yeah, that's expected because women are not built for sports dating. Men are. I'm not saying men could do this for the rest of their lives, but I could say that they could outlast you in sports dating and have far fewer psychological scars to show for it. But let's hear what else she has to say.
Once I turned 38, the clock ticking has just dissipated. Such a nice place to be in. At the end of the day, I am not old. I have the rest of my life to find and spend with someone. Yeah, I have never had a burning desire to be a mom. I'd like to have that opportunity with the correct person. I froze my eggs when I was 32 because I was so invested in my career that I knew that was probably a good idea. I would love to meet someone that would make an amazing father. And I'm also coming to terms with the idea of maybe what my life would look like if that doesn't happen for me. And I wish that I had wrapped my head around that years prior. Now, you're someone that absolutely knows that motherhood is in your future. Do not let that dream die. Figure out a way to make it happen. And it'll happen. For me, that just wasn't my number one priority. And that's clear by the decisions I've made in my life. So if you're in your 20s or in your 30s or even in your 40s and you're feeling like everyone else has it together and you're lacking and you're scared, I hope looking at me and my life and my mentality can give you just a little bit of peace. There are other alternatives to ways of living your life that can be very fulfilling and very beautiful, and don't let society tell you otherwise, okay? All right, love y'all.
All right, Queen, you're not old at 38. That is true, but guess what? You're also not a spring chicken at 38 either. And you said you froze your eggs at 32 because you plan to have kids down the road. This isn't society telling you it's a stigma, it's biology. You see, when you said that freezing your eggs at 32 was a good idea, well, statistically speaking, for women under 35, your eggs only have a 45% chance of developing into a clinical pregnancy down the road. That's the first thing. The second thing is, you may have frozen your egg, sweetheart, but the womb still ages. As in, you still age. So just because your eggs are frozen from the age of 32, and you decide at 44 to have a kid, guess what? That 45% chance drops as well. I mean, don't get me wrong. You still dream about being a mom. You should have worked on that already. You have a biological clock. It's not this gorilla being mean. It's this gorilla being factual. And you said it yourself, you're 38. How much longer do you have to wait for Mr. Perfect to come around? Note, I do agree with her when I say you have to vet the man that you're going to have your kids with. And ladies, this gorilla will go on record and say that if you have a child with a problematic father, you did choose him. So you do have to vet him. But the point is, that's what you have your 20s for. You have all the time there to vet him. 38, you really don't have that much time. Again, this isn't me saying it out of field. It's the fact that your oven is past its warranty. And there's no guarantee some buns are going to come out of that one. Now, what I'm going to say right now is an assumption. But usually, when we see videos like this of women talking about they froze their eggs and they're looking for Mr. Perfect, they tend to also go to those sperm banks and try to find the match of the guy they want there and pay top dollar for the sperm along with the egg. And then that's when they want to become single moms at the age of 45. Without considering that this is also going to give the kid several disadvantages because obviously your body isn't at its puppy making prime. That's all right. You take Chad and Tyrone's baby batter and you whip up yourself a gourmet kid with that one. Don't let society or biology tell you otherwise.
I'm just saying, if you enjoy this audit, click on the video in the end screen for more content.
If you would like to support the channel, please follow the link in the description to donate to our beer fund, or like, subscribe, and share this video on other social media platforms.
If you agree or disagree with anything about this audit, please let us know in the comments. I'm going to leave this audit right here. I'll see all of you in the next episode.